What's up, guys? Andrew Cooper here with another Coop Scoops, another important topic that we're going to talk about today, uncertainty. Before we get to that, just want to mention that on Underdog Fantasy, the puppy is back. So for those that don't know, the big tournament on Underdog Fantasy is Best Ball Mania, right? That goes all the way to August. It's got all big prizes, but it's the same contest. Anyone can join it now, anyone can join it later, right? Our research shows, we wrote the article about it, that down the road is when you want to join that contest. You get better odds, higher chance of winning if you draft your teams in August because you're drafting with information other people don't have, right? For the meantime, what I like to do is get into drafts like the puppy, which is a tournament, but it fills up within a couple weeks. So you're not going against people drafting in August with information you don't have. Or I just like doing regular 12-man leagues on there, sometimes cheap, just instead of mock drafts, just to figure out what ADP is like, what's going on. But anyway, if you're into that, use promo code ALARM. If you haven't signed up yet, they'll match up to $100 first deposit. So make sure you get on that. This topic I want to talk about here applies to both best ball, which is that underdog format, and regular leagues. And it's a very important topic. And it's something that both analysts and fantasy gamers, they refuse to embrace it the way they should. And that's uncertainty, right? A lot of people out there, especially analysts, when I was a young analyst, I felt like I had all the answers. Now I realize that you can't possibly have all the answers. And a lot of times embracing that uncertainty can help you. Here's what I'm talking about. If you go to a team like the Bengals, we know exactly what they want to do with their passing offense. It's T. Higgins at split end, Jamar Chase at flanker, Tyler Boyd at slot, Hayden Hurst at tight end. That's it, right? We know what they want to do. We know who's going to get the targets, where it's going to go. A lot of these other teams, they have, new coaches, new quarterbacks, new guys coming in, guys leaving. We don't know who's going to lead these teams in targets. And quite honestly, we can do our best guess to kind of figure it out. And with some of these teams I'm going to talk about, I'll give you my favorite pick, my best guess. But the reality is the ADPs are so low for so many of these guys that it's worth it just to take a shot on them. Even if you don't get the guy that you want, at times, if you're doing a bunch of these best balls, take a shot on one of the other guys, because at value, they could all end up being values because uncertainty has moved them so far down. So here's one example, right? You look at a team like the Jaguars. This is one I talk about all the time, right? It's a brand new coach in Doug Peterson. It's a second-year quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. You got Christian Kirk, who wasn't on the team last year. Evan Ingram wasn't on the team last year. And then you got Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, Zay Jones wasn't on the team last year. We can't definitively say who's going to be the top target on that team, who's going to be second, right? So there's a possibility that any of those top two guys can get 100+ targets and be highly fantasy relevant. But in underdog, these guys are going super late, right? Like Evan Ingram, for instance, is the guy that I like, because if there's uncertainty, right, and any one of those guys could be the top target, give me the guy that is tight end eligible, the position that's harder to fill, right? And he's going at tight end 22. So you don't really have to pay up a lot for him. That's a pick I like. Another example would be the Patriots, right? We're hearing these rumors that they're changing their offense around. And we know it's not just rumors because Jakob Johnson, the fullback from last year, came out and said that he's not part of the team. They're not using a fullback this year, right? So I like picking guys like, Devontae Parker, who wasn't with the team, plays split end. Jacoby Myers, pretty consistent target-wise, and Kendrick Bourne, who looked pretty explosive last year. Of that group, I am actually leaning towards Kendrick Bourne. And the difference maker for me is that there's actually been quotes this year where Kendrick Bourne says he not only loves the new offense, but they have him doing a lot of interesting things, running the ball to the backfield, getting a lot of end arounds, things like that. Last year, he did pretty well with those. And if the target's going to be fairly even among these guys, or we don't know who's going to get what, then give me the guy that also has a little bit of bonus in the running game. He's probably not going to be Deebo Samuel, but even just a little bit of that, we've seen guys like Curtis Samuel have productive seasons, even though they're not, the top of the tree in the passing chart. So another interesting one there. Then we got some big dogs. These are the ones that people know about, and you almost have to try and take a stab because the upside's so crazy. I'm talking about the Packers. I'm talking about the Chiefs. I mean, you look at this Packers team, maybe they do add like a Will Fuller or something, but if they don't, I mean, we're talking about Christian Watson, who's a high-end pick. We're talking about Alan Lazard, who has, the friendship narrative with with Aaron Rodgers. They've got Robert Tonyan, who we've seen score 11 touchdowns before in the past. And then there's guys like Randall Cobb, who's a friend of his. There's Amari Rodgers, who's a high draft pick. There's a lot of ways to get your hat in the ring here. You don't necessarily have to spend up on the top guy, but I like going for the top guy. In this instance, Allen Lazard, because you hear the quotes from Aaron Rodgers saying he gets a chance to be the top wide receiver now. To me, those words coming from Aaron Rodgers, who in the past has fixated on top guys. We're talking Jordy Nelson. We're talking Devontae Adams. I mean, for one season, he just decided to throw double-digit touchdown passes to James Jones. He's that good. He can kind of do what he wants. So if he's saying that he's the number one wide receiver, I'm listening. So sometimes I like going for just the cheapest option when it's really uncertain. Sometimes I like paying up for the top option if I think that his ADP is depressed. And then, of course, with the Chiefs, a lot of options here. You got Travis Kelce. Obviously, he's going to be the top dog. And that kind of only leaves room for one other guy to really be a high-end guy. And maybe it is a little too split for anyone to be a high-end guy. But you've got Juju Smith-Schuster, who's new to the team. Mecole Hardman, who is kind of a redundant asset to Tyreek Hill. Should flash some interesting potential, but never really got a full-time job. And then Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's coming in as kind of a field-stretching flanker after playing with the Packers. When I look at this group and I'm looking for upside, we know Kelsey's going to be the guy, right? Juju, I'm not sure that if the targets are spread out, his game translates to high upside just because his low average depth of target, his short routes. I mean, he's going to be fine, but in best ball, say I'm playing in Best Ball Mania or the Puppy, I want higher upside. So Juju at his ADP, sometimes I'm interested at the right value, but not really going for him a lot. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the thing for him with me is that we've seen him have plenty of opportunities with no Devontae Adams or no Allen Lazard to play as a top 2 target with the back-to-back MVP, and it was never particularly impressive. So I'm not entirely sure why we're jumping to this situation where we think that he's going to all of a sudden blow up with a new quarterback when he was just playing with one of the best quarterbacks. So for me, out of this group, I kind of like taking a stab on Mecole Hardman. They went out and drafted him, if you remember, during a period when Tyreek Hill was kind of under investigation for some domestic stuff. It didn't look very good. It ended up clearing up after they picked Hardman, and then they paid Hill, and that kind of, like I said, made him a redundant asset, put him on the back burner a bit. Now I think he's going to get a chance to play that role a bit, run some of those Tyreek Hill routes. I think he's the guy with the highest upside from this group, and his ADP is pretty sneaky. You can get him pretty cheap. So there you go, guys. Just a way to think about things. You don't have to pick the guys that I like. That's the beauty of it. Like I said, it's uncertain. We don't know. But you want to take that uncertainty, right? In the early part of drafts, pick situations we know. Pick, the safe guys, the trustworthy guys. Later on, you want to lean into that uncertainty. Instead of picking guys that we know are in a low upside situation, take a stab at one of these uncertain guys, see what happens. All right, guys, I'll talk to you next week.